My sister didn't just leave me out of her wedding party. She banned me, erased me, as if my very face was a threat to her perfect day. When I opened the invitation, I expected to see my name proudly listed as her bridesmaid. Instead, I found myself demoted to nothing more than a guest, shoved aside like some distant acquaintance. And when I asked why, the answer cut deeper than any blade. "Family photos must be flawless," my mother whispered, "and you don't belong." Imagine hearing that from the very people who once swore they loved you unconditionally. Imagine your own blood telling you that your presence, your appearance, your very existence would ruin their image. That night, I sat alone, replaying every childhood promise my sister had ever made to me. I remembered her words. Sisters forever. But forever ended the moment she chose appearances over me. They thought I would stay silent, swallow the humiliation, and simply disappear. They thought wrong. Because, in that moment, I made a choice that would not only change me, but shake the foundations of my family's perfect facade. The revenge I planned wasn't loud, but it was devastating. It wasn't violent, but it was unforgettable. By the time it was done, the wedding they wanted remembered as flawless would forever be known for the one truth they couldn't hide. That perfection built on betrayal always shatters. Stay with me, because what happened next will shock you as much as it shocked them. Anna Carter was 28 years old, steady and dependable, the kind of woman her coworkers at the local credit union always turned to when they needed a form checked twice or a customer soothed. She lived in a modest apartment above a bookstore on the edge of town, the sort of place where the floorboards creaked and the light from the old street lamp leaked through her curtains at night. She had built a quiet life for herself, nothing flashy, nothing loud, but secure. People who knew her casually would have said she was the responsible one, the sister who could be counted on, the daughter who never stirred up trouble. That stability made the shock of what came next all the more brutal. After the events I hinted at before, after those whispered words about family photos and perfection, the story must begin with something deceptively small: an envelope. On an ordinary Thursday afternoon, Anna returned from work, set her purse on the counter, and sifted through the stack of bills and circulars that had filled her mailbox. Amid the credit card offers and grocery coupons, there was one envelope that stood out. Heavy cream stock, her name written in calligraphy that curled like ivy across the surface. A faint trace of gold embossing catching the late sun through the kitchen window. For just a moment, her heart lifted. This was it, the invitation to the event Melissa had been talking about for months, the grand wedding that was supposed to draw their family together and show the world how strong the Carters were. Anna placed the rest of the mail aside, smoothed the envelope with her thumb, and allowed herself a small smile. She had imagined this moment in lighter moods, the joy of seeing her name printed next to the words bridesmaid, the chance to stand at her sister's side in matching dresses, perhaps even share a secret laugh when the tension of the day grew too heavy. Sisters forever, Melissa had said over glasses of wine on Anna's balcony only a few months earlier. That promise echoed in Anna's ears as she slid a letter opener beneath the flap and carefully pulled out the contents. The paper inside was thick, textured, and perfumed with something floral. She unfolded it slowly, savoring the elegance, and read the sweeping script. There was the formal invitation, the names Melissa Carter and Jason Thompson in bold print, the date and time, the location at the Grand Hall outside town. There was the itinerary, neatly organized into rehearsal dinner, ceremony, photographs, reception. There was even a response card with "kindly reply" written across the top. Anna read each line with anticipation, her eyes moving quickly, scanning for the part that mattered most. The section listing the wedding party. Her breath caught. She read it once, then again, slower. Bridesmaids. Laura, an old college roommate of Melissa's. Ashley, a friend from Jason's family circle. Two more names she recognized, only vaguely, women who had stood beside Melissa in other chapters of her life. And then the groomsman, Daniel Carter, their younger brother, proudly listed among Jason's closest allies. But nowhere on that page, nowhere in the flowing script, was Anna's own name. She turned the card over, as though perhaps it had been left on the back. She checked the envelope again, certain something had been omitted. Nothing. For a moment she simply sat at the counter, the edges of the paper pressing into her fingertips, the words blurring. The hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the clock on the wall were the only sounds in the room. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "Not even a bridesmaid?" The disbelief stung worse than anger could. She had been sure of her place, sure that family loyalty would mean something, that her presence was assumed. Instead, she had been filed away in the generic list of guests, no different from a distant cousin or a business associate invited out of courtesy. The shock spread slowly, a heavy ache settling in her chest. She remembered Melissa's bright eyes that evening on the balcony, when she had said they would find the perfect dress together. She remembered the way Daniel had once teased her that she would have to give a speech as maid of honor. All those small assurances now turned hollow. She set the invitation on the counter, rose to her feet, and paced the length of the kitchen, back and forth, the floorboards groaning beneath her steps. Betrayal was too strong a word, perhaps, for this first moment, but something close to it gnawed at her. She tried to reason with herself. Perhaps there had been a mistake in printing. Perhaps Melissa had simply forgotten to mention it. But deep down, even as she reached for those excuses, Anna knew. Names were chosen with care. Lists like this were checked and rechecked. Her absence from that page was deliberate. When the phone buzzed on the counter with a message from a coworker, she ignored it. She could not bring herself to speak to anyone. She picked up the envelope again, tracing her finger over her own name in calligraphy, Miss Anna Carter, a name that looked so elegant on the outside yet concealed such an ugly truth within. She folded the papers back into the envelope, slid it shut, and held it against her chest for a long moment. The house was quiet, yet her thoughts roared. She tried to summon relief, telling herself that perhaps being a guest would mean less pressure, less responsibility. But that was a thin comfort, and it dissolved quickly. What remained was the unmistakable sense of being excluded, diminished, cast aside from the role she thought was hers by right. Anna lowered herself into a chair and stared at the invitation, her eyes dry but her throat tight. She had not yet asked why. She had not yet confronted her sister, but she knew this. Something in the foundation of her family had shifted. And though the reason was still hidden from her, the wound had already opened. She sat there in the fading light, the envelope heavy in her hands, knowing she had been written out of the picture, and that discovery would be only the beginning of what was to come. Anna stood frozen in the quiet of her kitchen, the echo of her sister's name still ringing in her ears. She stared down at the invitation again, fingers gripping the edge of the cardstock until it bent. The gold lettering gleamed mockingly beneath the overhead light. Melissa Carter and Jason Whitman invite you to celebrate their wedding. Her name wasn't listed with the bridesmaids. No special mention. Just a line on the guest list, like she was some distant cousin or obligatory invite. After years of shared birthdays, sleepovers, and secrets whispered beneath the covers, Anna couldn't believe Melissa would cut her out so casually. The only explanation she could live with was that it had to be a mistake, a mix-up, something Melissa would laugh off when Anna asked. But as she picked up the phone and dialed, Anna felt a knot tighten in her chest. Somewhere deep down, she feared the truth. Melissa answered after several rings. Her voice was chirpy, high-pitched, like someone trying too hard to sound cheerful. "Anna, you got the invite? Isn't it gorgeous?" The calligraphy alone was worth the wait. Anna didn't return the enthusiasm. "Yeah, I got it." Silence stretched before she added, "I noticed I'm not a bridesmaid." Melissa paused. "Oh, well, the party's really small. Just a few girls, Jason's sisters, some of my friends from work. You know how these things go. The venue is really intimate." Anna blinked. "But Daniel's a groomsman." Another pause. Then a sigh. "Anna, please don't take this personally. This was such a hard decision. We had to think about the look, the vibe. The planner and photographer have this whole vision for the photos. It's very blush-toned, very cohesive. The dresses, the lighting, everything matters." Anna's voice dropped. "And I don't match that vision?" Melissa's tone shifted softer, but firmer. "You have a very strong presence, Anna. You've always been noticeable. And for the photos, we're going for something soft, clean, harmonious." Anna felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She didn't need Melissa to say it outright. Her birthmark, her broad shoulders, the fact that she wasn't delicate looking like the rest of them. Then another voice came onto the line. Jason. Hey, Anna, it's Jason. Look, we just didn't want you to feel awkward, you know. These pictures are going to be everywhere for years. You deserve to enjoy the day without stress. And honestly, we didn't want to put you in that position. Anna swallowed hard. What position? Standing beside my sister? Jason chuckled nervously. It's not like that. Melissa just wants everything to be balanced. Visually. Anna could barely breathe. So I'm not balanced enough for your wedding? Melissa jumped back in. Don't twist our words. You're still coming. Front row. We saved you a great seat. Anna closed her eyes. Remember when we were 12 and you swore we'd always be each other's bridesmaids? No matter what? Melissa was quiet. Then she said, that was before we had to think about things like photographers and online galleries and color grading. Anna felt something inside her go still. Not break, just still. Like a pond freezing over in winter. Thanks for clearing that up, she said, her voice steady. She ended the call without waiting for a goodbye. For a long time, she stood in the quiet, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator and her own breathing. Her family hadn't just excluded her, they had judged her, branded her as not good enough to stand in the background of a photo, and that realization didn't shatter her. It changed her. She wandered back to the living room and sat on the edge of the couch, her thoughts reeling. A slideshow of childhood memories flickered in her mind. Birthday parties, first dances, their dad's funeral. Melissa had always stood beside her. Always. Even when Anna was bullied in school for her birthmark, Melissa used to say, they don't see how strong you are, but I do. And now she saw nothing but inconvenience. Anna glanced at the invitation again. There was a note scribbled on the corner in Melissa's handwriting. Wear something neutral, not too bold. The photographer prefers pastels. A chill went through her. It wasn't just that they didn't want her in the pictures. They didn't want her visible at all. She reached for her phone again, almost by instinct, but paused before dialing. Who would she call? Her mother would likely side with Melissa. She always had. Her father's voice might have been the one to soothe her now, but he was long gone. So Anna sat with the truth, let it settle. They didn't want her there as she was. And that meant one thing. They would never see her the same way again. Anna stood frozen in the quiet of her kitchen, the echo of her sister's name still ringing in her ears. She stared down at the invitation again, fingers gripping the edge of the cardstock until it bent. The gold lettering gleamed mockingly beneath the overhead light. Melissa Carter and Jason Whitman invite you to celebrate their wedding. Her name wasn't listed with the bridesmaids, no special mention. Just a line on the guest list like she was some distant cousin or obligatory invite. After years of shared birthdays, sleepovers, and secrets whispered beneath the covers, Anna couldn't believe Melissa would cut her out so casually. The only explanation she could live with was that it had to be a mistake. A mix-up. Something Melissa would laugh off when Anna asked. But as she picked up the phone and dialed, Anna felt a knot tighten in her chest. Somewhere deep down, she feared the truth. Melissa answered after several rings. Her voice was chirpy, high-pitched, like someone trying too hard to sound cheerful. Anna, you got the invite? Isn't it gorgeous? The calligraphy alone was worth the wait. Anna didn't return the enthusiasm. Yeah, I got it. Silence stretched before she added, I noticed I'm not a bridesmaid. Melissa paused. Oh, well, the party's really small. Just a few girls. Jason's sisters. Some of my friends from work. You know how these things go. The venue is really intimate. Anna blinked. But Daniel's a groomsman. Another pause. Then a sigh. Anna, please don't take this personally. This was such a hard decision. We had to think about the look, the vibe. The planner and photographer have this whole vision for the photos. It's very blush-toned, very cohesive. The dresses, the lighting, everything matters. Anna's voice dropped. And I don't match that vision? Melissa's tone shifted softer, but firmer. You have a very strong presence, Anna. You've always been noticeable. and for the photos, we're going for something soft, clean, harmonious. Anna felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She didn't need Melissa to say it outright. Her birthmark, her broad shoulders, the fact that she wasn't delicate looking like the rest of them. Then another voice came onto the line. Jason. Hey, Anna, it's Jason. Look, we just didn't want you to feel awkward, you know. These pictures are going to be everywhere for years. You deserve to enjoy the day without stress. And honestly, we didn't want to put you in that position. Anna swallowed hard. What position? Standing beside my sister? Jason chuckled nervously. It's not like that. Melissa just wants everything to be balanced, visually. Anna could barely breathe. So I'm not balanced enough for your wedding? Melissa jumped back in. Don't twist our words. You're still coming. Front row. We saved you a great seat. Anna closed her eyes. Remember when we were 12 and you swore we'd always be each other's bridesmaids, no matter what? Melissa was quiet. Then she said, that was before we had to think about things like photographers and online galleries and color grading. Anna felt something inside her go still. Not break, just still, like a pond freezing over in winter. Thanks for clearing that up, she said, her voice steady. She ended the call without waiting for a goodbye. For a long time, she stood in the quiet, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator and her own breathing. Her family hadn't just excluded her. They had judged her, branded her as not good enough to stand in the background of a photo. And that realization didn't shatter her. It changed her. She wandered back to the living room and sat on the edge of the couch, her thoughts reeling. A slideshow of childhood memories flickered in her mind: birthday parties, first dances, their dad's funeral. Melissa had always stood beside her. Always. Even when Anna was bullied in school for her birthmark, Melissa used to say, "They don't see how strong you are, but I do." And now she saw nothing but inconvenience. Anna glanced at the invitation again. There was a note scribbled on the corner in Melissa's handwriting. Wear something neutral, not too bold. The photographer prefers pastels. A chill went through her. It wasn't just that they didn't want her in the pictures. They didn't want her visible at all. She reached for her phone again, almost by instinct, but paused before dialing. Who would she call? Her mother would likely side with Melissa. She always had. Her father's voice might have been the one to soothe her now, but he was long gone. So Anna sat with the truth, let it settle. They didn't want her there as she was. And that meant one thing: they would never see her the same way again. Anna didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to convince herself that maybe, just maybe, someone in the family still cared enough to stand by her. That not everyone had bought into this fragile illusion of perfection Melissa was constructing. She needed to hear something different. She needed someone to tell her she wasn't imagining things. The next morning, she drove across town to her parents' house. The two-story colonial home looked the same as it always had. Trimmed hedges, blue shutters, wind chimes on the porch. But today, it felt colder, like the house already knew what kind of conversation was about to take place. Her mother, Margaret, opened the door. She looked surprised to see Anna, but not unhappy. She ushered her in with the usual routine kisses on the cheek, offering coffee, glancing down at Anna's outfit. That last look always came. Subtle, quick, but it stung more than ever now. They sat in the kitchen. Anna didn't wait long. Mom, I talked to Melissa yesterday. Margaret stirred her coffee slowly. She mentioned you might be upset. She uninvited me from being a bridesmaid because I don't fit the aesthetic. Margaret looked up, expression unreadable. Then, in a soft, almost conspiratorial voice, she said, "Sweetheart, you have to understand. This is the most important day of her life. Everything needs to be just right." Anna felt the floor shift under her. So I ruined just right? Margaret reached across the table and squeezed Anna's hand. You know how Melissa is. She's always been obsessed with the details. The pictures, the guests, the venue. She has a vision. And that vision doesn't include me. Don't say that, her mother said quickly. You're still invited. You'll be there. That matters. Anna pulled her hand back. Being there isn't the same as standing beside her. She was supposed to be my sister. Margaret's face tightened. Sometimes, we have to put personal feelings aside for the greater good. Anna turned to see her father, Richard, entering the room. He wore his weekend uniform. Crisp slacks, tucked, in polo, shoes polished like he still expected to be saluted. He had clearly heard most of the conversation. "Dad, do you agree with this?" He didn't hesitate. "I agree that Melissa's wedding is a reflection of this family. Appearances matter, reputations matter. If a few choices ensure that everything goes smoothly, then yes, I support it." Anna stared at him. "So your daughter's feelings don't?" "We're not ignoring your feelings," Richard said. "But this day isn't about you." Anna felt something collapse inside her. She looked between her parents and saw nothing but blank pragmatism. No warmth, no outrage on her behalf. They weren't cruel. They were complicit. She stood up slowly. "Thank you for making things clear." Margaret opened her mouth as if to speak, but Anna didn't wait. She walked out the front door, each step heavier than the last. Whatever family she thought she had, whatever loyalty, whatever unconditional love had vanished in the soft lighting of a wedding photographer's lens. She wasn't just excluded. She was alone. Anna didn't go home right away. Instead, she drove without a destination, winding through the back roads of her hometown as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pavement. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. But her thoughts were looser than ever, slipping in and out of memories she hadn't revisited in years. She pulled into the empty parking lot of an old park they used to visit as kids. It hadn't changed much, the creaky swing set still tilted slightly to the left. The sandbox now more weeds than sand. Anna got out and sat on one of the benches overlooking the field, letting the memories wash over her. Melissa used to call her birthmark an extra brushstroke from God. Anna smiled bitterly at the thought. She could still hear Melissa's younger voice, high and unfiltered, saying, "You look like one of those Renaissance paintings, like an angel that God wasn't finished with yet." Anna had clung to those words like a shield. At a time when other kids snickered and teachers avoided eye contact, Melissa had been the only one who made her feel beautiful, different, yes, but different in a way that mattered. But that was the story Anna told herself. The truth had always been more complicated. She opened the old photo app on her phone and began scrolling back through the years. There weren't many digital records of their childhood. But a few years ago, her mother had digitized the family albums and sent her the files for posterity. Anna zoomed in on one picture after another. Christmas 1999, Melissa front and center in a red velvet dress, Anna beside her in green, her head turned at an odd angle. Easter 2002, Melissa smiling wide, Anna almost hidden behind a bouquet. Family reunion 2005, Melissa glowing, Anna's face half shaded by a sun hat too big for her head. She paused at one photo in particular, her 8th birthday. They were at a picnic table in the backyard. Melissa leaned in, pretending to blow out Anna's candles with her, but Anna noticed something she hadn't before. Her own face was blurry, as if someone had adjusted the focus deliberately to sharpen Melissa. And then there were the portraits. The official family photos. Those rigid, unnatural sessions at the department store, with the mottled blue backdrops. Anna had always hated them. Her mother insisted she wear heavy foundation. "Just a little to even you out," she'd say. But Anna remembered how it felt, the way her skin itched underneath the layers. She remembered standing in line at the counter while the makeup artist dabbed and smoothed, and how Melissa had stayed quiet. But Melissa hadn't always stayed quiet. In one memory, Anna was 10, crying in the bathroom after a boy at school called her stained. Melissa had burst in, grabbed a wet paper towel, and scrubbed the boy's drawing off Anna's locker before dragging her sister out to the swings. "You're not stained," she had said. "You're marked." Anna had believed her. Now, those moments felt like borrowed kindness. Not lies exactly, but softer versions of a truth Melissa had never had the courage to say aloud, that even back then, Anna was an inconvenience. A blemish on a canvas Melissa wanted pristine. Anna stood and walked toward the rusted monkey bars. The metal was warm under her palm. She had climbed these bars while Melissa braided daisy chains. They had carved their initials into the bench she just sat on. M+A equals Forever Sisters. She found the carving. The letters were still there, though weathered and chipped. Forever Sisters. The phrase felt like a cruel echo now. Forever. until the dresses didn't match, until the photos demanded symmetry, until Anna became too bold, too real, too visible. She wiped at her eyes roughly. Not from sadness, from clarity. Because what hurt now wasn't just being excluded from the wedding. It was realizing that exclusion had always been present, quietly stitched into the background of their family tapestry. It was in the way her father posed them for pictures, always placing Melissa slightly in front. In the way her mother corrected Anna's posture, but not Melissa's. In the way Melissa had stopped inviting Anna to sleepovers once they entered high school. In the sideways glances during prom season, the way dresses never quite fit right, the suggestion to wear sleeves. Anna had rewritten those moments in her memory, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. She had painted her childhood in warmer tones than it deserved, convincing herself that love had been there, just buried. But now she saw it for what it was, conditional, curated, and coded in silence. She sat back down on the bench, staring at the field as a pair of children ran past, chasing a kite. Their laughter pierced the air, high and free. Anna pressed her lips together. She was done chasing approval that came at the cost of herself. And something deep within her stirred. Not rage, not revenge. Resolve. They had spent years cropping her out of the frame. Now it was time for her to take center stage on her terms, in her light, and she would make sure they never forgot it. Anna sat in her apartment that evening, the wedding invitation still propped against a stack of unopened mail. The elegant cream cardstock had dulled under her kitchen light, but the golden letters announcing Melissa and Jason's union gleamed with an unearned pride. She had read those names over and over, waiting to feel something different, anger, maybe. But all she felt was hollow. On the corner of the invitation was the RSVP card. Neatly printed options, one to check, will attend, the other, will not attend. Until that moment, Anna hadn't made a decision. Or maybe she had, deep down, but had refused to look it in the eye. She walked to the small side table near her sofa and opened the bottom drawer. A few photo albums sat underneath old paperwork and mismatched cords. She pulled one out and flipped through the pages. There it was, a picture from their childhood. Melissa and Anna, sitting side by side on the old backyard swing set. Anna was maybe 6, Melissa 8. Melissa's arm wrapped tightly around her, both of them grinning with the kind of freedom only children could possess. Anna studied the photo for a long time. The freckles, the uneven bangs, the missing front tooth, it was all so innocent, untouched by the years that would follow. She remembered that day. They'd just made a mud pie and tried to convince their mother it was chocolate cake. Melissa had taken the blame when the mess ruined their dresses. "That's what sisters are for," she'd said. But time had chipped away at that sentiment, layer by layer, moment by moment, until all that was left was a shell of sisterhood, hollowed out and polished for public display. Anna took the RSVP card and placed a firm checkmark in the box beside "will not attend." The pen left a faint indent in the paper, more pressure than necessary. She reached for a blank note card and paused. This part mattered. She took a breath, steady and full. Then wrote, in her cleanest script, "Thank you for teaching me that not everyone who calls you family actually treats you like family." She read it back once, then slipped the card into the envelope along with the RSVP. Before sealing it, she slid the photo inside as well, the one from the swing set. It was both a memory and a message, a reminder of what they once were, and what they would never be again. The mailbox on the corner was still within walking distance. Anna slipped on her coat and walked the 3 blocks in silence. Each step felt lighter than she expected. The air was cool, brisk even, but she welcomed the sting of it on her cheeks. When she dropped the envelope into the mailbox, she didn't flinch, she didn't hesitate. That envelope carried more than a reply. It carried a reckoning. As she turned to walk back home, her eyes stung not from sadness, but from the wind and from the weight she'd just cast off. She wasn't going to the wedding, not because she was bitter, but because she was done pretending, done performing. And though she didn't know it yet, that small act, that envelope, would become the first thread pulled loose in the tapestry her family had so carefully constructed. The illusion of perfection would unravel, and Anna had just started pulling. The The morning of the wedding dawned bright and crisp, the sky a flawless blue, exactly the kind of weather Melissa had hoped for. Every detail had been curated to perfection. The floral arrangements imported from Oregon, the hand-lettered seating charts, the white grand piano under the willow tree. Nothing was allowed to go wrong. But drama, like weather, had its own timing. Dressed in a muted lavender dress and clutching a small silver handbag, Aunt Linda arrived a little after noon. She was known in the family for her bluntness and her big heart, and she'd always had a soft spot for Anna. The day before, Linda had stopped by Anna's apartment, hoping to convince her to come. When Anna had handed her the RSVP envelope and quietly asked her to make sure it got where it needed to go, Linda didn't ask questions. She just nodded, took the envelope, and promised. She hadn't planned to open it, but something about Anna's tired eyes and forced composure made her curious. That night, she had gently peeled it open, and when she saw the childhood photo and read the note, her throat had tightened. It wasn't loud or vengeful. It was devastating in its clarity. She brought the photo and the note with her. While most guests were mingling in the garden, sipping champagne and adjusting hats, Linda stepped into the bridal preparation suite. Melissa was having her hair pinned up, surrounded by makeup artists, bridesmaids, and stylists. The room was thick with perfume and nerves. "Melissa," Linda said quietly, holding out the envelope. "This came from Anna." Melissa didn't even look at it. "I don't want anything from her," she said curtly. Linda nodded once, tucked the envelope back into her handbag, and left the room. But she didn't throw it away. She found a seat at the edge of the ceremony aisle and tucked the envelope into the program booklet resting on her lap. She wasn't sure why. Maybe out of respect, maybe out of quiet rebellion. It wasn't until the reception, nearly an hour later, that things started to spiral. One of the bridesmaids, Emily, spotted the envelope while chatting with Linda at the cocktail table. Curious, she asked if it was a note for the couple. "It's from Anna," Linda said simply. "You can read it if you want." Emily read the note. Her eyebrows raised. She passed it to another bridesmaid. The photo made its rounds. A whisper, then a murmur, then a low buzz among small clusters of guests. By the time dessert was being served, a noticeable tension rippled through the tables. A couple from out of town leaned in and asked a cousin, "Wasn't Melissa supposed to have a younger sister?" "She does," came the hesitant reply. "But she didn't come? Why not? You didn't hear?" There was some drama. "I heard it had to do with appearances. Like family photos." The phrase struck a nerve. It repeated like static around the room. Family photos. Not aesthetic enough. "Did you read the note?" Jason noticed the shift first. He leaned toward Melissa at the sweetheart table and muttered, "People are talking. What is this about a note?" Melissa flushed. "Ignore it." But he didn't. Neither did Richard, her father, who was already fuming by the bar. He stormed over to Linda. "Did you start this?" Linda, ever unbothered, took a sip of wine and said, "No." But maybe someone needed to. Melissa was soon pulled aside by two older guests, asking gently, "Why wasn't Anna here? We always thought you two were so close." And suddenly, the illusion Melissa had worked so hard to build the image of the perfect bride, the flawless family, the curated happiness began to splinter. She saw it in the sideways glances, in the fake smiles, in Jason's clenched jaw. She had excluded her sister to maintain a clean aesthetic. But now the stain was larger than a photograph, and it was spreading. A week after the wedding, just when Anna thought the chapter might be closing quietly, something unexpected landed in her inbox. It was a forwarded email from the wedding photographer, a standard thank you note, she assumed at first. But the thread below it hadn't been properly trimmed. Her name was still on the CC line, likely pulled from some earlier correspondence. She almost deleted it without reading. Almost. Out of idle curiosity, she scrolled down. The deeper she read, the tighter her grip on the mouse became. Her chest tightened. Her jaw clenched. It wasn't a generic message at all. It was an exchange between Melissa and their mother Margaret, dated 2 months before the wedding. Subject line: Coverage options, family formals. Melissa. I want to make sure Anna doesn't ruin the photos. Can we position her far to the side? Or maybe crop her out in post? Margaret. Agreed. Depending on what she wears, we might not even want her in the wide shots. Ask the photographer if we can do an alternate set without her. Melissa again. We can always do a siblings-only version with Daniel if she shows up looking, well, you know. The message ended with a response from the photographer, professional but cautious. Of course. We can arrange multiple compositions and use discretion during edits. Anna sat frozen. She reread the exchange 3 times. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't someone overreacting to a stray comment or an awkward moment. This was deliberate, months in the making, executed with surgical cruelty. The note she'd sent with her RSVP had come from emotion. Pain, yes, but also a last thread of hope. This email wasn't emotional. It was calculated, coordinated. She looked at the screen again, at the words ruin the photos. All her life, she had tried to forget the moments when someone angled a camera to avoid her birthmark, when makeup artists had been called in to help during family events. She remembered being 7, asked to wear a scarf in a summer photo shoot. Being 15 and hearing a distant aunt suggest they Photoshop her cheek. But this wasn't childhood ignorance. This was her mother. This was Melissa. And it wasn't about photos. It was about erasing her. From their vision of family. From their version of beauty. From memory itself. She didn't reply. She didn't forward the email to anyone. She didn't even mark it as saved. But she printed it. 1 copy. Folded neatly. Tucked into the back of a drawer, behind her passport and birth certificate. A piece of truth. Quiet, cold, and waiting. Because sometimes, revenge didn't arrive as a storm. Sometimes, it gathered like smoke, invisible, patient, and absolutely undeniable. 3 weeks had passed since Anna received the email. She hadn't told anyone. Not her best friend. Not even her therapist. The folded printout remained in her drawer, humming with quiet rage. But she hadn't acted. Not yet. Then, one evening, as twilight softened the corners of her apartment, she sat at her kitchen table with a glass of wine, her phone face up beside her. She opened the photo app and stared at the image for a long time. A candid shot taken just a month before the wedding drama began. Her hair was pulled back, her face bare, and the birthmark, the deep maroon swirl that climbed across her left cheek, was fully visible. For most of her life, she had learned to hide it. Foundation, angles, bangs, scarves. But that night, something shifted. Not defiance, not pride, something quieter, something steelier. She opened Instagram, uploaded the photo, and typed a single sentence. I thought I was part of the family. She hit post. At first, there was nothing. Then, an hour later, a like. Then, a heart emoji. Then a comment from a woman she hadn't spoken to since college. You're beautiful. Don't let anyone dim that. Within 12 hours, the post had over 400 likes. Dozens of comments. Private messages began to trickle in. My sister cut me out of her wedding too. All because I gained weight after my pregnancy. I wore long sleeves for years because my mom said no one would want to see my scars. Thank you for posting this. I feel less alone. Some messages came from strangers, others from people she knew only vaguely, old coworkers, friends of friends, distant cousins who had drifted out of touch. And then came the shares. Someone had reposted her image with the caption, "This woman was excluded from her own sister's wedding for looking different." Imagine the cruelty. It was reshared. Again and again. Hashtags appeared. Number real beauty, number family is more than photos, number I thought I was included. In less than 2 days, the post reached 10,000 likes. Anna didn't name Melissa. She didn't need to. She never mentioned the wedding. She never tagged anyone. The power of the post wasn't in accusation. It was in emotion. In honesty, in the unspoken pain carried by too many people for too long. And while Melissa posed with her bridal party on beaches in Maui, perfect smiles, curated captions, flawless angles, the internet began whispering a different kind of truth. Anna hadn't planned it this way. She hadn't set out to go viral. But now that it had begun, she wasn't going to stop it. Not because she wanted attention, because now she had something she hadn't had at that wedding. A voice. And this time, people were actually listening. The reaction from her family came swiftly and viciously. The first was her father. Richard Carter never raised his voice unnecessarily, but when Anna answered the phone that Saturday morning, there was no mistaking the fury simmering beneath his controlled tone. "Take it down," he said without greeting. "Delete the photo, the post, all of it." Anna leaned against her kitchen counter, steadying her breath. "I didn't name anyone, Dad." "You didn't have to," he snapped. "Everyone's connecting the dots. People from my firm have seen it. Your mother is beside herself." Anna closed her eyes. Maybe she should be. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. Colder now. "Stop this, Anna, or you'll lose your inheritance." She almost laughed. As if money could fill the space left by years of being dismissed, edited out, quietly erased. "I think I've already lost something much more valuable," she replied and hung up. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her mother. Margaret had left 4 missed calls and now a voicemail that played through sobs. "Anna, honey, why are you doing this to us? This family has always loved you. Can't you see you're tearing us apart?" Anna didn't respond, but the calls kept coming. 6 the next day, 8 the day after that. Her mother's tone shifting from sorrow to pleading to anger. "You think you're helping people? You're embarrassing us. Your sister is devastated." Anna stared at her phone. Its screen lit up like a warning flare. She blocked the number. Then came the text. "Melissa, you ruined my wedding," it read. "You just couldn't let me have one day, could you? One day that wasn't about you. You stole the spotlight, Anna. You always do." Anna stared at the words, stunned by the irony. She hadn't attended. She hadn't said her sister's name. She hadn't wanted a spotlight, just the dignity of not being pushed into the shadows. She didn't respond. But that message festered. It wasn't just hurtful, it was revealing. In those words, Melissa admitted what Anna had long suspected, that her mere presence, her very existence, was seen as a threat. Later that night, a new message. This one from Daniel, her younger brother, the quiet one, the one who had stood in the groomsmen lineup while she sat at home, uninvited and unwanted. "I knew it was wrong," his message read. "I'm sorry." 3 words. No excuses, no defenses, just regret. Anna reread the text, then set her phone down. Her chest tightened, not from anger, but from the ache of knowing someone else had seen it, had known, and had said nothing. That night, she barely slept. Not from guilt, but from a spiraling wave of conflicting emotions. Vindication, rage, grief, and the dull ache of familial rejection. She sat at her kitchen table, phone silent now. The wine in her glass had gone warm. The city outside moved on as if nothing had happened, but inside her apartment, the silence rang loud. In the days that followed, the comments online grew louder. Some people praised her bravery. Others accused her of attention-seeking. A few tried to guess who the family was. Strangers debated her worth, her appearance, her motives, as if she were a character on a reality show. But Anna ignored them, because her family's silence and now, their rage spoke volumes. She had spent years contorting herself to fit a version of beauty, of belonging, of daughterhood that never truly included her. Now that she had stopped trying, they had no use for her at all. And yet, through the fog of grief and betrayal, a strange clarity emerged. She was not crazy. She was not being dramatic. They had edited her out long before she ever posted a single photo. Now they were simply furious, she had finally noticed. And this time, Anna wasn't going to disappear quietly. She wasn't just confronting her family anymore. She was confronting every silent moment, every edited photo, every swallowed opinion, every backhanded compliment disguised as maternal concern. And now that she had started, she would not stop. For the first time, she wasn't trying to reclaim a place at their table. She was building her own. The silence didn't last long, not in the real world, and not in Anna's heart. What followed wasn't just noise, but an unexpected chorus. It started with Aunt Linda. The woman had always been the family's unpredictable element too, outspoken for Margaret's taste, too liberal with her opinions for Richard's liking, but Anna had always liked her. That morning, Anna opened her inbox to find a message from Linda. No subject line. Just a few short sentences. I saw your post. You were brave. I'm sorry it took this long, but you've always deserved better. Below the message, a photo attachment. A scan of an old Carter family Christmas card from 20 years ago. Everyone smiling. Everyone posed. And in the back corner, half-cropped, a much younger Anna with a heavy fringe and a forced grin, her birthmark clearly dabbed over with poorly matched makeup. They always tried to hide what made us different, Linda wrote in a second email. I watched them do it to you, just like they tried with me. I regret staying silent. Not anymore. Anna stared at the image, her breath catching. It wasn't just about the wedding. This had roots so deep they reached into generations. Emma, her best friend since college, showed up next, literally. She appeared at Anna's door with 2 bags of groceries and a bottle of wine, wrapping Anna in a long hug without saying a word. They sat for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Emma had seen the post too, and had read every comment, tracked every share, ready to throw hands if anyone came for Anna. You know I've got your back, she said, sipping wine straight from the bottle. Always. Anna smiled. For the first time in days, it didn't feel forced. Then came Mark Reynolds. He was a senior analyst at Anna's company, someone she respected but never knew very well outside project meetings and occasional lunches. He sent her a private message. My wife's black. When we got married, her grandmother refused to come. Said it'd ruin the family photos. We took the best damn wedding pictures anyway. I saw your post. Just wanted to say you're not alone. Anna read the message twice. It stunned her, not because of what he said, but because of how many others began to echo that same note. Messages flooded in from people she barely knew, each one sharing their own version of exclusion. Different circumstances, but the same sting. And then, just when she thought she understood the full landscape of reactions, her mother called again. Anna didn't pick up, but this time, Margaret left a voicemail longer than usual. Her voice was tired, not angry. There were no tears. When I was 16, she began. I got pregnant. My parents made me pretend it never happened. They sent me away for the summer, then came back like nothing had changed. I wasn't allowed to talk about it, not to my friends, not even to your father when we first started dating. Anna's breath caught in her throat. I spent my whole life learning to hide things that might make people uncomfortable. Things that didn't look perfect. That's how I was raised. So when I tried to keep you out of those pictures, I thought I was protecting you. There was a pause, but now I see I wasn't protecting anyone. I was continuing the harm, and I'm sorry. Anna sat in stunned silence. She didn't cry. She didn't throw her phone. She didn't even move for several minutes. Her mother's words weren't enough not for forgiveness. But for the first time, Anna saw the machinery behind the cruelty. Not malice, but damage. Generational shame passed down like a family recipe. Still, knowing why didn't make the pain go away, but it gave it shape. And in doing so, Anna felt something shift inside her, a foundation forming beneath all the grief and confusion. She was not broken. She had never been. She had simply been asked to shrink herself to fit someone else's broken frame. Not anymore. This time, she was stepping into the frame as she was. Whole. Visible. Unafraid. The invitation came on a Thursday afternoon, nestled between emails about faculty meetings and a discount from her local bookstore. At first, Anna thought it was a mistake. Then she read it again. The message was from the communications director at St. Elora Medical Center, a prestigious hospital known for its community outreach and family health programs. They were planning a speaking series titled Family, Inclusion, and the Faces We Hide. Anna's viral post and subsequent media attention had caught their eye. We would be honored, the email read, if you would share your story as part of our closing keynote panel. She almost deleted it, almost. But something in her heart stirred. St. Elora was not just any hospital. It was the same one where Jason's father, Dr. Henry Thompson, sat on the board of directors. The same man who had once made a toast at a Carter family dinner about the importance of genetic excellence. A remark that had made Anna's skin crawl. The irony was too sharp to ignore. She said yes. When she arrived the day of the event, the auditorium was already packed. Journalists, health professionals, students, and community leaders filled the rows. Anna wore a simple navy dress, her birthmark visible and uncovered. She had never felt more nervous or more resolved. She stepped onto the stage, adjusted the mic, and began. "When my sister got married," she said, her voice calm, measured, "I thought I'd be part of the celebration. Instead, I received a message spoken aloud and reinforced in silence that said I wasn't aesthetic enough, that I would ruin the family photos, that I didn't belong." A murmur moved through the crowd. Anna pulled out her phone, opened the forwarded email, and read aloud. "Let's discuss coverage options to minimize Anna's presence in the group shots. Maybe we keep her to the far end, or crop later if needed." That was the plan. To erase me, digitally and socially. Silence. But here's what I've learned. When you erase someone from the picture, you're not protecting the family. You're shrinking it. Applause, she continued, sharing her journey not as a victim, but as a person reclaiming her voice. She spoke of inclusion not as a buzzword, but as a decision made daily. She ended her talk by raising the printed RSVP card she had never sent. "I checked 'will not attend' because I thought my absence would hurt less than my presence. But I was wrong. What hurts more is a family that chooses image over intimacy." The auditorium erupted. Within hours, media outlets picked up the story. Headlines appeared. "Sister Speech Sparks Reckoning on Family Image Culture. Hospital Keynote Exposes Hidden Exclusions in Picture-Perfect Families." The PR team at St. Elora, delighted by the viral moment, made a bold choice. They launched a new awareness campaign called "No One Left Out of the Picture." And the first poster featured Anna's portrait, full face, birthmark unedited, beneath the tagline, "Inclusion means everyone, no exceptions." Billboards went up. Flyers. Bus. Stop ads. The campaign made the cover of local magazines. And just like that, the very face Jason's family had wanted to crop out was now front and center. Dr. Thompson resigned quietly from his board seat a week later. The Carter family canceled their Christmas photo shoot. Melissa locked her social media accounts. Anna didn't gloat. She didn't need to, because the revenge had never been about humiliation. It had been about truth. And now, the world had seen it. The reaction from her family came swiftly and viciously. The first was her father. Richard Carter never raised his voice unnecessarily. But when Anna answered the phone that Saturday morning, there was no mistaking the fury simmering beneath his controlled tone. "Take it down," he said without greeting. "Delete the photo. The post. All of it." Anna leaned against her kitchen counter, steadying her breath. "I didn't name anyone, Dad." "You didn't have to," he snapped. "Everyone's connecting the dots. People from my firm have seen it. Your mother is beside herself." Anna closed her eyes. Maybe she should be. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. Colder now. "Stop this, Anna, or you'll lose your inheritance." She almost laughed. As if money could fill the space left by years of being dismissed, edited out, quietly erased. "I think I've already lost something much more valuable," she replied, and hung up. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her mother. Margaret had left 4 missed calls, and now a voicemail that played through sobs. "Anna, honey, why are you doing this to us? This family has always loved you. Can't you see you're tearing us apart?" Anna didn't respond, but the calls kept coming. 6 the next day. 8 the day after that. Her mother's tone shifting from sorrow to pleading to anger. "You think you're helping people? You're embarrassing us. Your sister is devastated." Anna stared at her phone, its screen lit up like a warning flare. She blocked the number. Then came the text. "Melissa, you ruined my wedding," it read. You just couldn't let me have one day, could you? One day that wasn't about you. You stole the spotlight, Anna. You always do. Anna stared at the words, stunned by the irony. She hadn't attended. She hadn't said her sister's name. She hadn't wanted a spotlight, just the dignity of not being pushed into the shadows. She didn't respond. Later that night, a new message. This one from Daniel, her younger brother, the quiet one. The one who had stood in the groomsmen lineup while she sat at home, uninvited and unwanted. I knew it was wrong, his message read. I'm sorry. 3 words. No excuses, no defenses, just regret. Anna reread the text, then set her phone down. Her chest tightened. Not from anger, but from the ache of knowing someone else had seen it, had known, and had said nothing. She sat at her kitchen table, phone silent now. The wine in her glass had gone warm. The city outside moved on as if nothing had happened. But inside her apartment, the silence rang loud. In the days that followed, the comments online grew louder. Some people praised her bravery. Others accused her of attention-seeking. A few tried to guess who the family was, but Anna ignored them. Because her family's silence and now, their rage spoke volumes. She had spent years contorting herself to fit a version of beauty, of belonging, of daughterhood that never truly included her. Now that she had stopped trying, they had no use for her at all. And yet, through the fog of grief and betrayal, a strange clarity emerged. She was not crazy. She was not being dramatic. They had edited her out long before she ever posted a single photo. Now they were simply furious she had finally noticed. And this time, Anna wasn't going to disappear quietly. Weeks passed. The online attention, surprisingly, didn't fade. In fact, it grew. Anna launched a blog titled The Perfect Family Myth, where people from around the world submitted their own stories of exclusion and silent shame. The site quickly amassed thousands of readers. Some shared stories of being the black sheep in pristine family photos. Others spoke of unspoken rules, edited identities, and the exhausting pursuit of approval. Anna didn't offer solutions, only space. Space to be seen, space to be heard. Then came an invitation that made her pause. A nonprofit linked to her local hospital, where Jason's father sat on the board, was hosting a symposium on inclusion and healing. They wanted Anna to speak. The topic? Inclusion and the faces we hide. She hesitated, then said yes. The auditorium was full that evening, doctors, board members, staff. Jason's father sat in the front row, unaware of what was coming. Anna stood beneath the lights, took a breath, and began. She spoke not with venom, but with clarity. She shared her story. She displayed the family photo and read, verbatim, the line from her sister's email. Family photos must be flawless, you don't belong. Gasps echoed. Phones buzzed. Reporters took notes. By the next morning, the story had gone viral. Local media covered the event. National outlets picked it up. Soon, posters appeared around the hospital, part of a new campaign. No one left out of the picture. Front and center was Anna's face, unfiltered, her birthmark clearly visible, gaze direct. The very thing they had once tried to hide was now the symbol of inclusion. A revenge not by destruction, but transformation. Months later, Anna stood in front of her mirror, pinning a soft green sash across her shoulder. Bridesmaid, Emma's wedding. This time, she walked the aisle with head held high. Aunt Linda had flown in and sat beside her beaming. Mark sent flowers. Daniel texted daily now. And then there was the letter. From Melissa. A simple envelope, no return address. Inside, a note scribbled in her sister's familiar handwriting. I was wrong. I let fear decide for me. I was terrified of not being accepted by his family, of not fitting into their world. I thought if I just controlled the picture, I could control everything. I'm sorry. Anna didn't reply. She placed the letter in a drawer. Not out of cruelty, but because she had nothing more to prove. Melissa's apology wasn't a bridge. It was a confession, a quiet admission that Anna had never been the broken one. That evening, Anna hung a new portrait in her apartment. It was just her. Alone. No edits. No retouching. Her birthmark visible, her shoulders square, her eyes calm. The light from her window hit it perfectly. She looked at it for a long moment, then smiled. She didn't need a perfect family photo to know her worth. She was the picture now. And she belonged. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with Anna's story. But now, we'd love to hear yours. Have you ever been told you didn't belong by the very people who should have stood by you? Have you ever been cut out of the picture? Not for what you did, but for who you are? If this story stirred something in you, let us know in the comments. Share your voice. You never know who needs to hear it. And if you believe stories like Anna's deserve to be told, stories of quiet courage, of betrayal and healing, of finding your worth even when others try to erase it, then please subscribe to our channel. There are more stories like this one waiting to be heard. Because no one should ever feel like they need to disappear just to make others comfortable. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply living your truth out loud.